Tonight, the verdict from within. A number of NPP presidential hopefuls are queuing up tonight to stress how they can do better than their own current administration in a race to distinguish themselves from the Akufo-Addo-led government.
The people of this country have supported it for a long time. And this is the time to make them feel that there is a new leadership coming. A new leadership that will turn the corner and make lives better than we see it today.
We tell you how former Minister for Regional Cooperation, Dr. Konedu Apreku, got his nomination forms rejected. But after 4 hours of trying to rectify the challenge, we tell you if he succeeded to finally file.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. Tonight, a number of NPP presidential hopefuls are queuing up to stress how they can do better than their own current administration in a race to distinguish themselves from the Akufo-Addo-led government. 3 hopefuls today returned their nomination forms and filed it. One of them had a challenge. We'll tell you who very shortly, and he was turned away. We'll disclose his identity, but also after 4 hours of trying to rectify, did he manage to finally succeed in filing the nominations? You're talking about the former Minister for Regional Cooperation, Dr. Konedu Apreku. That's later. But now, the decision by a number of the aspirants now to make a point that they are different from their own current administration, led by a man many of them served on his cabinet. One of them is a former Power Minister, Boachi Ejako, who has been talking about how they could have been better.
The difficulties that you may be facing, I thank you and I'm grateful. Today is not the day for speeches. But I want to take this opportunity for you to think about the meaning of today. Today is when we begin to restore hope in ourselves, to restore hope in our party, and to restore hope to the people of this country. The people of this country have supported it for a long time. And this is the time to make them feel that there is a new leadership coming. A new leadership that will turn the corner and make lives better than we see it today. These are difficult times, I admit. But all difficult times require new leadership and new thinking. Yes, the NPP, we've done very well. But I can tell you, we can do better and we must do better. We cannot rest on our oars and pat ourselves on the back for what we did yesterday. The people of Ghana will accept us for what we commit to do tomorrow for their well-being. And all of you gathered here, let me assure you, I consider you to be very important as part of the army of the NPP. Our winning 2024 is not going to be on the back of somebody's magic. It is not going to be one person. It is going to be people like you who are going to go down to the grassroots, polling stations to work for our victory. That is why I count you more important. No one person is going to win victory for us in 2024. It is going to be you. Therefore, we have to energize you. We have to make you ready. You have of 2024. I am interested in this party retaining power for the next 40 years. Not just breaking the 8. Not just breaking the 8. Be in power for the next 40 years. This is the only way we are going to change this country. It is going to depend on you. 40 years I will not be here. But the party will, and we must build a strong party that you are comfortable in. Most importantly, that you receive the reward of your hard work. That is the problem of this party. Reward and hard work. And I commit to you, those who are gathered here and the silent majority of supporters around this country, that indeed the time is coming that you will receive your just reward for all the hard work you do for your party.
And that, by the way, is Boakye Jaku, who used to be the Prime Minister and that the current administration in the first term of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's administration. And indeed, he has been stressing, as you've just been listening there, his distinction and how he plans to do better than the government under which he served. Another man who recently left cabinet is Owusu Efiri-Akoto, also filing today and also indicating what he plans to do differently. Mbura, you were there.
Yeah, so he intends to use the agricultural sector to take the economy out of what he calls the economy, the IMF trenches. According to him, his 6 years service under the Akufo-Addo government has laid the foundation. So if he's voted to lead the party and eventually wins the national elections, he will transform the economy.
The same way I was able to bring agriculture to the front line of policy discussion, in the same way that agriculture will be used to take us out of the clutches of the IMF. Because the agricultural sector in this country has great potential, and we haven't even scratched the surface of it. During the 6 years of my service in the Akufo-Addo government, we laid the foundations, both in terms of programs, in terms of legislation, in terms of intellectual capacity and all that, to build an agriculture which will provide the finances, both foreign and local, to finance our industrial development, to finance our education, to finance our health, to finance our infrastructure, including motorways, farm tracks, and all the requirements that we need to make a good country. I'm therefore assuring you that having taken this first step today on the road to 26th of August for the superdelegates, I'm appealing to you that when the time comes, vote for Owusu Efiri-Akoto. He will make this party great again, and will also turn things around to ensure that this country becomes prosperous.
So Owusu Efiri-Akoto there had a smooth sailing when he went there to file his forms today.
Exactly.
And it also applied to the former Prime Minister Boakye Jaku, but a third former minister in the Kufuor administration had a tough time. In fact, he was rejected. That's Dr. Konadu Aproku. What was the issue?
So he was actually the first aspirant to arrive at the party office in the morning, and he met the elections committee, and what we learned was that his forms were not complete. They were requesting for his CV and evidence of his personal contribution to the party. So that is what he had to go back, rearrange his documents, and then resubmit.
So he was rejected the first time?
Yes, he was rejected.
How long did it take?
It took about 4 to 5 hours before he came back, because he left there around 10:30 and then came back by 2:30.
There was no problem. There was a document that we did not receive that required us to send, include in our document our vision. And it wasn't, we did not know about it. We didn't ignore it, but we just did not know. So we did not bring the document, and they asked us to go and bring it. We brought it, and everything is okay. We have submitted the documents.
What is
And Nana Obri Nkansa is a communications director for Dr. Preku, joins us on the telephone line right now. And Mr. Obri Nkansa, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Yeah, good evening to your listeners and your thoughts.
And I've just heard your boss that describe the fact that there was a document that they didn't know about, but all the other aspirants who came seem to have filed this quite smoothly without a hitch. Is it that you didn't know about it or you went there unprepared?
Not that we went there unprepared. We were aware, but when the secretary was arranging the documents, I think he left it out. There was nothing untoward happened. What happened was that the director of elections wanted to take it. That is Mr. Evans Nimakon. They wanted to collect the document. And doctor himself opted and said that he cannot continue with it. He has to go to the document and come back with it because he doesn't want to go to the vetting and then they come and say there's another document missing. So he decided to go to his office and go through again so that there might not be any hint again. So that's what happened. And indeed, we went back and then he went to tolerate through the document and then we added what was omitted and he brought it back. So that was what was transpired, and then that's what my boss spoke about.
And thankfully, Director of Elections, Evans Nemako, is with me. Director of Elections, thank you for your time here on Top Story, Mr. Nemako. Happy with the documents once they return with it?
Well, Evans, thank you. And let me greet your listeners. Thank you also for the opportunity to let the world know the extent to which the New Patriotic Party is organizing its presidential primaries. Primaries was open 26th of last month. It's ending 24th, which is Saturday. It is expected of prospective candidates who have been able to procure forms to return the forms to the committee on or before 24th of this month, which is the closing date for the nomination. So, yes, we started receiving nomination forms already. Mr. Alanche Martin and Dr. Mahmoud Baumia has submitted theirs. Today we had Mr. Jakun, Dr. Koto, and Dr. Preku also submitting their nomination form. This is not vetting per se, but when forms are submitted to the committee, it is expected that some interrogations will be made to ensure that all attachments to the forms are attached. And so that was the discussion between myself and Dr. Preku. And I found it a bit strange to have been told and heard on some media platforms that Dr. Koto's nomination forms have been rejected.
But you have to, in essence, demand it. If you didn't have it, there was no way you were going to accept his filing.
I mean, he is aware that, before the committee received the nomination forms, it must come complete. So it was on that basis that he had to go back to his office and come complete so that the forms will be received and handed over to the Okwe committee. The National Council, if you look at our constitution, it stipulates that the National Vetting Committee shall comprise of 3 members nominated by the National Council. We also have the chairman of the Council of Elders as a member and chairs of the standing committees of the National Council. So these are the composition of the vetting committee. And once nomination is open, it is the Director of Research and Elections who must see to it that all those requirements expected of candidates are fulfilled. So it was on that basis that Dr. Preku was to go back and come complete.
Stay with me. I want to quickly address one of the key trends emerging with these filings. Some of the individuals filing have been part of the administration, but of course have been careful to try and chart their own path. With me in the studio is the spokesperson for the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, Dr. Gideon Bwako. Doc, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Nice.
And yes, last week when the vice president filed, one of the key things he said was that he had his own vision, quite distinct from, of course he talks about what he's been part of, but he also had his own vision. In spelling out the vision, though, many will ask you, how is that vision different from the last 4 years? Of course, it's been part of this administration at a very high level. How do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's not just the vice president who has his own vision. I believe that any of the other aspirants who are seeking the mandate of the people to lead the party and ultimately become the president of this country would one way or the other have his or her own vision. It is important that we articulate that and let Ghanaians know that each one of them is coming on his or her own merit with a new set of vision. Of course, it's going to be quite difficult to say that you want to run a vision that is distinctively distinct from what is existing today. You may have some elements of the vision of this government, getting into the vision of the new leader, because we are one political party and we have common values and core values, and the values of the NPP are the values that our forefathers JB Danquah and Co had set out for us. We believe in property owning democracy, we believe in private enterprise and all of that. So whichever vision that any of the new aspirants has will be anchored on the core values and the principles of the new patriotic party. So in essence, it wouldn't be markedly different from the vision of the party, but it must be fashioned in a certain way that will also carry the entire Ghanaian community along. So by and large, they are all expected to be visions that will help address the challenges of this country and help promote economic growth for the people. But it may have some elements of President Kufuor's vision, some elements of Akufo-Addo's vision, and then whatever you want to carry. But by and large, it must be situated within the context of the values and the principles of the new patriotic party.
Stay with me. Another individual today, a former Great Minister who recently just resigned from cabinet, also filed his nomination forms today, and also presented his own vision. I want to bring in Prince Amuzu, who speaks for Dr. Freya Koto. Ms. Amuzu, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you very much for having me in regards to the listeners.
There's a fundamental
question. Colleagues on the panel.
There's a fundamental question that all of you aspiring who have been part of this current administration will have to ask and answer, really, which is, I heard the former Great Minister talk about using a great to transform the economy, etc. But he's been the pivot in this administration for using a great to transform the economy already in the last 6 years through the Plan for Food and Jobs. So he could not do that in 6 years. Why should we believe that he can do that going forward?
Very well. The conversation is one of time. If he says in 6 years he has laid a foundation, that is understandable, because you couldn't have said that you could do that in 1 year or two or whatever. But the structures, some of which are institutional, for example, the Tree Crop Development Authority, which he speaks about, the Horticulture Development Authority, and all those stuff, they have legal components and so on and so forth. And also there's a conversation about the prioritization and worth of investment that goes to the sector and the priority of the government of the day. So these are the conversations we are talking about, and we could not say that because he's been a minister for 6 years, he should have achieved everything else within that 6 years. Clearly he has said that the Nana Danquah Akufo-Addo government has laid a strong foundation upon which, when he's given the opportunity, he is able to continue and make agriculture the bedrock of our economy, raise the necessary foreign exchange to fund the social sectors of our economy. This is a very sound and profound vision for anybody to put forward.
Does he accept that he will be, if he wins, he will be running on the record of President Akufo-Addo and on his own record as former Great Minister?
He is part of the record of the President Nana Akufo-Addo, and he is not shying away from his record as a Minister for Food and Agriculture. So, sure, he is going to run on the record of this government, which he is proud of.
And then the follow-up then is, if he's going to run on that record, there isn't a perfect government. Is he also ready to accept the failings as his as well?
The comparative view of the point you put forward that there is a failing, you have to compare to have the weight of it. Look at the opportunity cost. If NPP were not in power, if Nana Danquah Akufo-Addo was not president, if Dr. Osofri Akuto was not agric minister, do you know that would have had food crisis in Ghana by now? That's the type of conversation we can be having. It has to be comparative. Yes, there are difficulties. Yes, we are in some kind of financial and economic situation, but we are better off compared to the alternative.
I mean, Gideon, so the Vice President says he has his own vision. What is his vision? Can you articulate it?
Yeah, I think if you look at the vision the Vice President articulated, it cuts across energy efficiency, fiscal prudence, cut across economic growth, agriculture. But anchoring all of this is application of technology to leapfrog the technology that we have to enter or embrace the fourth industrial revolution. So, for instance, in the area of agriculture, he thinks that, yes, we need to develop agriculture sector, but we need to leverage technology, data and systems for inclusive economic growth. And he's talking about the application of AI and all of that to leapfrog this to get to where we want to get to. He talks about the need for us to have that golden age of natural resource governance, where we add value to our national resources. So it talks about having the dream of getting an LBMA certification for our gold refined.
There's something said on that, correct me, I mean, you can elaborate on that the BOG will have his own mine of a sort?
Yes, the Vice President
is that what it is?
Yes.
The Bank of Ghana will own his own mine?
Yes. I mean, all over the world, central banks that are doing so well have gold mines. I mean, they buy gold. In fact, the IMF has the highest, vote of gold in the world. Banks that are big in the world are big because of the gold reserves.
But they don't mine themselves. They buy it and store it.
Yeah, so
for a rainy day.
Yeah, I mean, some do. Some central banks have gold mines. What the Vice President is advocating for is that first we establish an LBMA certified gold refinery in this country. Ghana is the largest producer of gold in Africa, but in the whole of Africa, it is only South Africa that has an LBMA certified gold refinery. So we get our gold, the dory, and then we ship it just like that. We don't add value to it. So he believes that if gold has been with us for ages and has been one of our number one exports, then we need to have that refinery that is certified to refine our gold in this country. It can even serve the sub-Saharan African sub-region. So that is where he is looking at. And then the Bank of Ghana continues to increase the vote of gold that we are buying.
So you have to explain this. So the idea is for the Bank of Ghana to operate the mine? How is that going to work?
The Bank of Ghana will own it, not necessarily operate it.
Will own it.
Exactly. Will have a gold concession. Because we have gold concession, foreigners, companies from outside come, they get concessions in the country.
So this is a large-scale mine?
Yeah, whether through Ghanaians, and they are mining and taking the gold away. We are sitting on the gold. It is our property. There's nothing wrong.
So this BOG own mine, is it large scale or small scale?
It's going to be large scale, and the Bank of Ghana regulations allow them to enter into such trading. You understand? It's in the Bank of Ghana regulation where the Bank of Ghana owns a gold mine. The Bank of Ghana can own a gold refinery, buy gold, refine it, keep it to shore up our foreign exchange. That is the largest backup we can give to our currency, and that is the future. And the Vice President has seen it. He has worked with the IMF, the World Bank, and all these international organizations, and he knows what other central banks are doing in other countries that are helping their currencies to be held properly and having a lot of foreign exchange. That is why 1.5 years ago, he started advocating for Bank of Ghana to increase their gold. And since independence until 1.5 years, Bank of Ghana only had 8 tons of gold. Today, as I speak with you, within 1.5 years, Bank of Ghana has doubled the vote of gold that we had since independence. And that has doubled. And we are going forward with this, and we brought the gold for oil policy, and it's going so well. So the Vice President, in terms of his vision and future, he thinks that we need to have that golden age of natural resource governance, and not just for the gold but other areas. But he believes that the exports of gold is so huge that we cannot continue to export raw gold after so many years of independence and being the Gold Coast. We need to establish that and move forward. So it's part of the vision that is going to make sure he runs the country with. He believes in industrialization like other candidates are saying, but he believes that we need to scale up our industrialization backed by technology, where we can apply the artificial intelligence and all of that to get into spare parts manufacturing and all of that to shore up, the foreign exchange that we get.
But I need to ask you, what has stopped him from implementing all this in the last 6 years?
Oh, I wouldn't say something has stopped the government. The vice president is not a trade minister. He doesn't implement anything. The vice president's office is not in charge of any policy implementation. It's a thinking institution where policies are developed and the sector ministers implement. Over the last 6.5 years, the government has done so well in terms of industrialization. You've seen what we've done with the One District, One Factory. In terms of agriculture, we've seen the robust policies we've introduced, planting for food and jobs and all of that. In terms of energy efficiency, you see what we've done with the diversification, all that. So we have done things up to a certain level. But for him, he thinks that there is still more to be done, and we all believe there is still more to be done. That is why we need to see which new angles we have to plug to ensure that going forward we're able to do things more robustly and apply the technologies of today to get where we want to get to, and also move with the contemporary trends. That is exactly what the vice president is saying. He is not saying that because he's espousing these ideas, nothing has been done at all. We've done something, just as my brother said, built up the country up to a certain level. And the new leadership that is coming will also have to continue from where we are and bring some new ideas on board. That is basically what we're sharing now.
Let me wrap up with Kwame Obiri-Nkansa, who is the communications director for Dr. Akufo-Addo Apraku. Mr. Nkansa, Dr. Apraku is a stalwart of the party, but he belongs to the many will describe as the old school NPP generation, that in this particular fight, in this race, he stands no chance. How do you respond to that? Hello, Mr. Obiri-Nkansa. We appear to have lost him on the line there. And I still have with me Prince Amuzu, who is a spokesperson for Efri Akoto. Ms. Amuzu may have lost, in fact, all of them on the telephone line right now. And let me wrap up with you, Gideon, since you're still with me in the studio. So, Dr. Bawumia, in essence, last week was an official launch of the campaign because he filed. Are we going to be seeing him actually campaigning, because he's still a vice president who is the chairman of the economic management team?
Yeah, first of all, he's not going to be the first vice president to still contest for internal elections in the country. We saw Professor Mills, may he so rest in peace, he was vice president, he contested internal elections. We saw Alhaji Aliyu Mahama, he was a vice president, he contested. We saw President Mahama, he was the president, he contested elections. And Vice President Bawumia is not moving out of the convention and the practice that has been laid down. In fact, he started his campaign right after the submissions. Friday, he did 2 constituencies. Yesterday, he did 4 constituencies. The day after Friday, he did 4 constituencies. And today, he's doing 4 constituencies. So all in all, he's doing about
4 constituencies in a day.
Exactly.
Where? In Greater Accra?
Yeah, Greater Accra here. So as I speak with you, he's in one of the constituencies. I think he's doing the last constituency now. So he's continuing with the campaign. He joins that with work. This morning, he went to the office, worked briefly, and then moved out to do his campaign. Somebody was asking, why is he using work hours to do politics? That has been the convention. But in any case, this vice president has never gone on leave for the past 6.5 years. So he has some accumulated leave he can take to do some of these things.
Gideon, thank you very much. And that's for Top Story tonight. News Night in a minute.
Brother